Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the technical error. This is Paul Meyer from GAI Insights, and this is our daily briefing where we rate news essential, important, optional to save you time and help you take risk out of your AI projects and increase productivity. We have a number of great articles today. We have AI analysts from around the world. Lud and I are in Boston. Adam is in down under in Australia. Ankaj is in India, and John is driving from Chicago to, I think, Nebraska. Is that right, John?
Grand Island, Nebraska.
That's right. So, and I think it's a long drive, and he's been driving for a while. So, John, thanks for joining us. So, Ankaj, why don't you kick us off with the first article?
Sure, Paul. So the first one that we have for today comes from BCG and New York Life, and it talks about how New York Life is embracing Gen AI to augment the human experience in insurance.
So, Adam, you've got point on this. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah. So, branded content by BCG on Wired magazine. Amazing what money can buy these days.
Yes.
I would consider this optional, potentially nothing burger of the week material. It's got two incredibly human experience augmenting use cases, right? It's amazing. They talk about chatting with your own data and having generative AI help you write a letter. This is like incredible, earth-shattering stuff. Like, if this isn't essential news, I don't know what would be. But in all seriousness, look, it's got two really basic use cases. It uses a lot of words to show how important they are and all the value from them. But I consider this optional. If our AI leader isn't aware of probably the two most basic possible use cases for what you can do with generative AI, they should probably just stop listening.
All right. So, nothing burger of the week, optional. Next one, Ankaj, please.
I think we need a new rating that says even a robot wouldn't do this.
That's right. Nothing burger of the week. A robot wouldn't do this. Yeah, I love it.
So the next one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about how Hugging Face has acquired ZHub, which it will be using for large AI model hosting.
Yeah, and I think this was Luda.
Yeah. Yes. I am between optional and important. It's a very natural acquisition. So Hugging Face is acquiring this company to boost the abilities in the back end and the database and storing bigger data and processing it. So I think Hugging Face will be way improved as a result of this acquisition, providing their very huge customer base this capability, and that's important, right? So I don't know. I would put an important, but I can be talked into optional.
I had as optional, John or Ankaj or Adam.
I could definitely try and talk Luda into optional on this one.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, yeah, it's great. Like, it makes sense that Hugging Face would want to make sure they expand their capabilities in hosting large AI models. I don't think it would have much sway or influence or even impact or insight really for an AI leader.
Yeah, it's sort of under the hood type of a thing, right? So the capability existed. It's just will be way better. Okay, I'll move. I can move.
I can talk you down.
Capitulate. That was an easy one. I'm showing my ignorance here. I know Hugging Face has raised $400 million. I think it was at a $4 billion valuation. I actually don't know their revenue model. Does anyone here know by chance? Or if you're listening and know the revenue model, can you put in comments? I know that I just know them.
I'm embarrassed I can't answer the question, honestly.
Yeah. Well, shame on us. We're aspirational AI leaders or AI analyst firm, and we should know this. So I'll take that as a homework item. All right, Ankaj, next article, please.
Okay, the next one comes from Quen2. So there's a new model called Quen2 Math, and it is performing really well on downstream mathematics tasks.
Yeah, so historically, this was assigned to me. Historically, large language models have not been very good at, or perhaps even horrific at many math. This is a model that is better at that in some of the testing. I had it optional for the AI leader. Luda, optional.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Even though good to know that there is a model that if you're out there to solve a difficult mathematical problem, this is the model to turn to.
And speaking of, and I'm jumping back to Hugging Face. I can't remember if I posted that or who sent it. Maybe it was Bruce or someone sent it to me. Adam, it was a report where 70% of the Hugging Face models have never been downloaded, and that 1% are 1% of the 1% of the models represent 99% of downloads, and all the popular ones you can think about it. So the power law works even extreme in that situation.
So I just asked the robot. So Hugging Face provides enterprise solutions, right, with dedicated support, custom model hosting, deployment options. They also charge for API access at scale, which is part of like offering this to business. And then they do partnerships and collaborations with like AWS and Azure that have revenue sharing agreements.
But you might ask?
So that answers your question.
Yeah, but do you know what the revenue is? I mean, to get a $4 million valuation. What's that? All right, let's keep going. So that's optional. I don't know their model, but let's figure out. I guess we know the model. We don't know what the revenues are. And I haven't heard anybody saying I'm in production with Hugging Face. So, maybe it's still kind of very aspirational type of revenue math. All right, Ankash, next one, please.
Okay, the next one comes from South Korea and from LG. So they have launched a first open source GenAI model in both Korean and English language.
I got this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So I consider this optional news. It's interesting to note. It's the first one out of Korea, and it's a 7.8 billion parameter model. So it's not one of the really big, like 400 billion or even 40 billion. It's one of the smaller models, so you'll be able to run it more places. But they actually go into detail here about a competitor model and how well it did as an open source that had come onto the market. So I didn't even see much about like it was topping the charts or anything. I think it was more just the commentary that they're throwing their hat into the fray of an already busy market. Some interesting commentary to note why they went for an open source approach, but generally speaking, I'd say this is optional news.
Yeah. Great. Others? Counters?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Definitely optional. The thing that struck me is, at a national level, they're talking about open sourcing one of the smaller models. I mean, it's I would have expected the Koreans to have launched, if not a frontier model, at least a larger model. So anyway, I think it just continues to show the differential dominance of the, large country investments in this.
Yeah. And one of the things that John and I and others keep in a lot of conversation with this whole concept of own your own intelligence, and what does that mean for sovereign countries like South Korea? And it's a really interesting and big question. There's 195 plus countries out there, and a non-trivial question for a company like South Korea, which is a major economy and a tech player here. So optional. Let's next one, please.
Hold on, Paul. You're absolutely right, because it really will enable the local folks. It's Korean based, right? It speaks in Korean, it does things in Korean language. So it will spur a lot of development and will create a base in that area of the world for AI. So this is wonderful news for our AI leader, optional, but
in a way, it's like what Mark Zuckerberg has done with Llama in terms of providing that as open source and building the ecosystem around it by giving all these people access to these models. So for Korea, strategically, it makes a lot of sense then. There probably aren't very many Korean language models, open or closed source, that people could even be using. So it'll be a big help for them. 5 years down the road, people will look back and go, yeah, that was a really smart move.
And I'm actually going further, asking the question, is it actually irresponsible for a major country not to develop at least some version of its own intelligence, even if it's forking an open source model here.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you, Paul. But this is also LG is taking the baton and taking the leadership spot, right? And trying to present themselves in the world, not just in South Korea, as the vendor and the leader in this space with the educational thing yesterday, right? They can start putting educational content, to Tim's point yesterday, onto these hardware devices. So I think this is a notable effort.
Yeah, I'm the other end of that. A 7 billion parameter model. What did it cost them? 20 million, 50 million to LG. I mean, that's round off error on their round off error. They spend more money on private jets running around the world. I mean, I think I personally think it's a trivial investment by a big company.
I agree with you, John, but by the fact, see, it's a forking of their strategy. They're the electronics vendor, period. So what they're trying to do is put themselves into the space, maybe with a little investment, and pull in some potential new revenue source and present themselves differently in the world. So yeah.
They're going to have one of these running in every television they sell next year. I can see where they're going in terms of the convergence with their other industries as well. It's
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but LG and Samsung, certainly some major tech players there. So optional for now. Next one, Ankash, please. It's an optional Friday here, Adam.
I know.
Yeah, I was noticing we're going to have a no-hitter.
That's right.
Unusual.
Yeah. So the next one comes from OpenAI. OpenAI has released a system card for GPT-4 model, and it talks about the scorecard on risk evaluation and mitigation.
I think that was assigned to me.
No, it's me.
Oh, go ahead, Luda.
Yeah, so again, I was between optional and important, rated it as optional. However, I was really impressed by the comprehensiveness of this article. They went through discussing every aspect of how they did it, what were the results, how they rated it, what data they used, what data they didn't use. So it's a very comprehensive report that could be useful, and that's why I was vacillating between optional and important. But I don't know what our leaders will do with it other than nod, right? So that's why I put it as optional.
Yeah, Luda, I agree with that. I do like the biological threats and persuasion. I do think some of the categories of grading are notable.
Yeah.
The option, Adam, the no hitter continues. What will we got 2 more to go? I think so. What will
maybe Adam wants to talk me into important?
Oh no, ma'am. No, I was solidly on optional. I mean, it's interesting to see, but unless an AI leader is building and assessing their generative AI model anytime in the near future, they won't do much with it.
Yeah.
Our longtime community mentor Lucinda notes it's an all optional summer here. So great. So next one on Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from a startup called Curate. So they claim they have invented GenAI attribution technology through which they will compensate and credit content owners.
Yeah, this was the one that was signed to me. Yeah, another startup doing interesting things here. It's idea, unproven, optional until they get a lot more customers and traction.
Well, I wonder whether we should put it as important. It's a major critical item. A lot of talk about it. This announcement has a number of companies talking through it, right, saying how important it is, and they're signing up for it. It's run by the person who did the current attribution, right, that we use everywhere. So I just think for these reasons we should highlight it above all these other optionals that we have.
Adam, John, strong feelings?
Upper optional, Luda.
Okay. Oh, John? optional too?
Yes. No, I didn't get a chance to see this one because I left before it was posted, so
Okay.
I didn't have a chance to read it.
So Luda, I'm gonna pull the John Sviocla chalk. Keep it optional. The no hitter continues.
Okay.
Next, last one, please.
Okay, the last one comes from Mistral, and Mistral has launched a platform for building AI agents.
I think this was
Back to
Adam.
me.
Yeah,
Back
please.
to me. It's good they did. It's really just keeping up with Microsoft and Amazon and some of the other players in the space, right? This isn't like an agentic system per se. This is the equivalent of a Copilot, a custom GPT. You know, on Amazon Bedrock, they have an Amazon app as well. I was looking, it was actually back in 1st of May that we were looking at the news about Amazon expanding their enterprise with a wider availability of its Q chatbot, where it made, you could make no code bots and you just chat with an AI about what you want it, what kind of app you want it to be. And so this is not so dissimilar from that. It's good that they're doing it. If you're a Mistral user, it's probably gonna make things a little easier to build with. It also has an API option, but it's probably optional news.
Yeah, Adam, there's been so much talk about agents and agentic systems. In your mind, is there a definition of an agent, or is it just?
It's just any. I mean, I would say almost anything you chat with is an agent, right? Or anything it's like the black box of input in and input out for a function.
Right.
Really.
That's what I was, is there such a thing as a non-agent LLM application?
So no. So an agent is essentially a subroutine that does actions on your behalf. So it's a separate LLM with inputs and outputs, but designed to do actions for you.
And Luda, I think that actions would not be the non-rule-based actions. So it's actions based on someone else's action or input or.
Correct. So the ideal is that it's real time. So it's on the wisdom of the agent and the task that the actions are performed. And that's a little bit yet undefined and undetermined of whether this is possible and how it would be done.
Yeah, I don't think there's a good definition of agents, but for me, the difference between an agent and a subroutine is it's much more contextually aware, and because of that, can do more, assessment of its situation. And over time, I think these agents are also going to have autonomous learning. So, and that's very different than a subroutine. But to me, it's a sliding scale. But it's basically they have much more understanding of context, and then the internal stuff is your decision rights or policy in terms of actions given a context. And over time, I think they'll be learning.
So Google Alerts is searching for OpenAI for me, and when they see it, if the article contains OpenAI, send it to Paul as a Google alert. So that's a rule.
That to me would be a very rudimentary agent, right? You're allocating policy, but it's very rigid in terms of its understanding of context.
But John, the example Paul gave doesn't have a large language model as part of it, right?
Oh yeah,
right.
There's plenty of agents
that's
that don't
just
have
an algorithm.
That's
more pure machine learning.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are function calls. It's essentially agents are function calls, but it has an LLM and reasoning within it. So that's a difference. And also I think the ability of agents to do independent tasks, like buy the ticket for me in this context. That's the agent.
But see, Luda, though, I would say that ChatGPT, the app that I pay OpenAI to use every month, that's an agent, basically. And its task is to have a large language model do inference and answer my queries.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Right. And when I built a custom one that then takes the input from the daily email and goes and puts it on HubSpot in the database, it's still just an agent. It's doing different functions or queries on my behalf, not just answering the question of what was the business model of Hugging Face, right? But it's still an agent that's answering that question for me and pulling pulling the inference from the large language model.
Totally. But the idea is that you would take that agent and then
Make agentic systems. Yeah.
build a system that
Yeah.
pass it out into various things. If you're specifically interested in how many Hugging Face things happen in this time, and do something in Hugging Face, put it back into Hugging Face, that's an agent, right? And then you do something else. So it's a system of doing tasks on your behalf.
And
But-
what's the difference between an agent and an application?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the wrapper. Yeah, it's the pretty bow on it.
Yeah.
I like the way Lucinda defined it there in the chat. Agent is a task plus an LLM tool.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward.
Well, fabulous. So thank you, everyone, for another. I think we had our own no-hitter today. So, Akash, do you have the summary? And
All optionals, Paul.
all optionals. This might be our first no-hitter.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
We just want to see the LOs. For the record books. August 9th, 2024. Next week, we have our learning lab. And I actually, Adam, don't know if that's been finalized. Well, a learning lab on Monday. Hope everyone can join that. We had a great one this week about the block or not block SEO or agents, SEO robots that crawl your sites. Learning lab continues to grow. We've now I should add up how many. I think we're well over 100. We should have been doing it a year and a half. And that's it. So everyone, thank you from GAI Insights. Congrats to Dave DeLallo and John Sfielka and others. We had our 4th Harvard Business Review article published yesterday. And you can look that up. It's on a fantastic use case with Blue Cross Blue Shield Michigan, who are actually in production with 3 Gen AI products, 3 AI agents, 3 AI Gen AI applications in a highly regulated environment. So extremely impressive on one of the AI leaders we work to support. So thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend.
Happy Friday.